The wind carried the faint sound of rotors fading into the distance, leaving behind only silence. A silence heavy with dread. Inside the dimly lit hangar, the captured Navy SEALs knelt, their wrists bound, their faces streaked with dust and exhaustion. Surrounding them, 52 enemy fighters stood armed, their rifles angled downward but ready. And among the shadows of that hostile place, a woman with trembling hands and a heart pounding in her chest realized that she was their only chance of survival. She was no soldier, no officer, no trained operative. She was just a base hairdresser. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you were watching from. I love knowing who Quack US listening. Her name was Claire. Back on base, people knew her as the cheerful woman with scissors always tucked into her apron pocket. The one who could turn a ragged haircut into a clean, polished look that lifted morale. She was the woman who listened more than she spoke, who offered comfort through casual conversations about home, families, and dreams. But she was also the one who carried a secret, a truth she never expected to reveal again. Years earlier, she had grown up in a war-torn region, forced to adapt to violence, to survive by her wits. She had left that life behind, burying it beneath the ordinary rhythm of haircuts and laughter. Yet now, in this hostile stronghold where the SEALs were being held, her past refused to stay buried. Claire had been caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. She had volunteered to accompany a supply convoy, hoping to deliver simple comforts, care packages, toiletries, even a few clippers for the soldiers she loved to serve. But the convoy was ambushed, and she was dragged into captivity along with the SEAL team. She had seen enough in those first minutes to know the enemy's intent. These fighters didn't plan to keep their prisoners alive for long. Every instinct told her to keep her head down, to remain invisible. But when one of the captors shoved a rifle barrel into the ribs of the team leader, a man who had once sat in her chair back on base, joking about how he had never looked good no matter what she did with his hair, something in her broke. She couldn't watch him die. Claire forced her breathing steady, her mind racing through memories she had fought for years to forget. The language of these fighters was not foreign to her. She understood their words, their threats, their intentions, and she understood something else. Fractured among them were rival loyalties, quiet tensions ready to snap. If she could speak carefully, if she could maneuver just right, she might buy enough time for the SEALs to survive. The captors laughed at her at first. A hairdresser speaking their tongue? A woman daring to raise her voice among armed men? The hangar echoed with cruel amusement. But Claire did not flinch. She stood taller, her voice unwavering as she reminded them of their own fractured history, whispering poison into the cracks of their fragile alliance. One fighter's eyes narrowed at another. A hand tightened on a rifle. The murmurs grew. Still, 52 men surrounded them, and any wrong word could seal their fate. She prayed she would not fail. As the standoff stretched, Claire noticed the SEAL commander watching her. His eyes, bruised and swollen, carried a flicker of recognition and trust. That trust burned inside her like a torch. She remembered the hours she had spent trimming hair while listening to soldiers' confessions. She had always felt powerless then, wishing she could do more than simply nod and encourage. Now, in the darkest hour, she had the chance to be more than a listener. The tension thickened. Every shuffle of boots echoed like thunder. Dust floated in golden shafts of light through broken windows. Claire's hands trembled, but her voice stayed calm. She planted a seed of suspicion between two rival commanders, speaking in measured tones that forced the others to lean in, to question, to argue. And then the first shove came. One fighter barked at another, accusing him of betrayal. Voices rose. The circle around the SEALs loosened. Claire knew this was the moment. The SEAL commander gave a subtle nod, a signal so small it could have been mistaken for nothing. But his men understood. In a single motion, like a tide breaking free, they surged. Wrists that had appeared bound snapped loose. Hidden work done quietly with fragments of wire earlier. Elbows slammed into ribs. Boots kicked weapons free, and fists struck with precision, born of endless training. Chaos erupted. Claire ducked low, the crack of gunfire shattering the air above her. The fighters, distracted by their own infighting, were caught off guard by the sudden storm of resistance. The SEALs moved as one, coordinated like shadows, each action flowing into the next. Weapons clattered to the ground, bodies fell. Shouts rang out in confusion. But numbers still mattered. 52 against a handful. The SEALs fought like lions, yet Claire could see the tide shifting back toward despair. And so, she acted. Her eyes darted to the old generator at the side of the hangar, its wires frayed, sparks licking dangerously at the edges. Without hesitation, she sprinted, snatched a discarded blade from the ground, and slashed through the cable. A shower of sparks exploded into the air. The lights died. The hangar plunged into darkness. Panic spread like wildfire. In the blackness, every sound magnified. The grunt of combat, the scrape of boots, the hiss of breath. The SEALs thrived in it, trained for such conditions. The enemy, however, stumbled in fear and confusion. Claire pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering, praying the darkness would shield her. Minutes stretched like hours. When the emergency lights finally flickered back on, the scene had transformed. The SEALs stood bloodied but unbroken, their captors scattered, bound, or fleeing into the desert beyond. And in the center of it all stood Claire, no longer trembling, no longer invisible. The commander approached her, breathing hard, his face smeared with dust. "You just saved all of us," he said hoarsely. For a moment, silence reigned. Then the SEALs, hardened men who rarely spoke more than necessary, began to clap. One by one, their hands came together, until the hangar echoed with the sound. Applause born not of protocol, but of gratitude. Claire's eyes welled with tears. She had never imagined that her courage, once hidden behind the quiet walls of a base salon, could change the course of lives. She had not held a rifle, nor fired a shot. But she had wielded something just as powerful. Her voice, her wits, and her willingness to stand when everything told her to stay down. Later, as the SEALs led her out into the cool night air, Claire felt the weight of the stars above her. She thought of the countless soldiers she had comforted with nothing more than a pair of scissors and a listening ear. And now she had done something more than comfort. She had fought in her own way, and she had won. Because courage doesn't always carry a weapon. Sometimes it wears an apron. Because kindness doesn't vanish. It waits, and it finds its way back. The hangar and silence that night would always remind her of the moment she stopped being just anything. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of courage, sacrifice, and the extraordinary strength hidden in ordinary people.